Men of Reddit, what are some questions you've always wanted to ask women, but couldn't because it would seem weird? When using bathroom and you see your pad is slightly soiled, does it feel awkward having to put it back against you body? Edit thank you who all responded. I've learned a lot today. And I really hope guys have read this thread to have a better understanding and greater sensitivity. Yes. You also suddenly feel hyper-aware of the wet, soggy feeling of expelled blood being pushed back up against your bits. Especially if it's a longer trip to the bathroom and everything is cold and wet when you pull up your pants. One of my least favorite sensations. My life changed so much when I started tracking my PMS along with my period. I put a reminder in my phone about a week before my period is supposed to start, and a second reminder about 3 to 4 days in for what's usually my worst, most emotional-y day. It varies, but just knowing that it's coming up has saved me so much anguish. I remind my boyfriend too, so when I seem to get extra pissy for no reason we both know it's not personal. We used to get in pretty bad fights once a month until I figured out what it lined up with. We hardly fight at all now. I typically wipe at the pad with a piece of TP before pulling my pants back up to help prevent this from happening TBH. Edit, my first award and it's about pads huh. In all seriousness, thank you, yes. It's awful, which is why I resist using the bathroom for as long as possible, okay? I go to the gym and see women wear these sports bras that have like 10 straps. While I think that is a cool style, I wonder how they put it on and not get tangled in the straps. Totally get tangled in them sometimes. But you initially kind of bunch them together, and they are super fun to put on when you are still slightly damp from a shower. Hold all the straps with my thumbs, stick my head through, and hope for the best. You put it on and then spend 10 minutes untangling the straps. This. I'm a lecturer and I hate the heavy flow days when I'm standing in front of a classroom full of students and that jellyfish comes gushing out, and you have to stand still for a while to let it settle into your sanitary napkin. And all the while you're there yammering about King Lear. Do women put deodorant in their boob pits, or powder of some sort? Yes. My underboobs sweat a lot, I do not, but I don't have extremely large breasts. I think if your boobs are big enough to hang against your skin it might make sense to wear powder or something to be more comfortable. Though, how uncomfortable is it to wear a tampon? How do you know when you have to change it? Do you get some internal sensation that lets you know when it's time to replace it? Do you time it? How do you know? Please tell her. I walked around all day in front of 10 guys because I was the only woman and they were all too afraid to tell me. Please tell her. Much better having a friend, a stranger, anybody at all, tell you than nobody. I would be thankful someone told me TBH, what to do when a period stain is showing and you seem oblivious to it. Please tell her. I walked around all day in front of 10 guys because I was the only woman and they were all too afraid to tell me, for real. And if you're too embarrassed/shy about saying your period is showing or whatever, just say, hey, I think you might have sat in something cause there's a stain. Edit, spelling. Also, thank you to whoever gave me an award. That's my first one I've ever gotten. With periods, is it a gush, a small leak, or more of a drip every so often? And sometimes it's a clot, which feels like you're passing a hot slug through your orifice. Periods are fun. Edit, orifice not office. If you feel tampon after insertion, something is wrong. Rest is trial and error, but you can't wear tampon longer than 8 hours. Most my friends make that 6 or less to be safe. Edit, apparently I can't either. To add to this, you also tend to change it if it's leaking or if you go number 2. Edit, I can't spell. You aim to change before it starts leaking, but accidents happen because life. As for 2, most do, some don't. Mostly it's because they can't control what says in and what stays out simultaneously, so if you push everything comes out. You get used to the regularity of your period and how the flow changes each day. Often the first couple of days are heavier, so changing the tampon more often. There is a particular sensation when it's getting close to the time you need to change it. Hard to describe, but it becomes second nature after practicing. When it's in properly, you don't really feel it. Do women get the pee shiver? I know sometimes I'll be pissing and there's an uncontrolled shiver as I'm finishing up. Does that happen with women at all? Yup, didn't know it happened with men too. It can. Most women take their piercings out, because choking hazard, and the piercing hole heals up very quickly. FYI, milk comes out of several ducts at the nipple, not just one hole. Weird one, but it's been bugging me. For women with pierced nipples, if you get pregnant and start lactating, does the milk also come out through the piercing holes? I'm sorry, since I feel like this might be a bad women's anatomy sort of question, but it just seems like the milk would come out the sides. Do you have crushes on random people you encounter that you don't really see anything developing with? Like someone you see every day but don't really talk to for whatever reason. I don't mean in a creepy way, I mean, like, my barista is insanely hot and I fantasize about him even though absolutely nothing is going to happen because of several very important reasons. I assume this happens, but have always wondered if it's more common with men. I used to have a crush on this random nurse I used to pass in the hallway all the time. I worked in registration. The only time we spoke was when I occasionally had questions about his patients. Something about him just made me nervous. I would never initiate anything, but it was for sure a fantasy. I'm a woman and I had absolutely no idea that was the case. Till. I don't plan on having kids, so it never really came up, don't worry. I didn't know either before it started shooting out in all possible directions, quite the surprise. I was surprised too when my wife began feeding our kid. I thought it was going to be like a cow udder/laser rifle. Nope. It's more of a scatter shot, yes, it does. I'm on my second pregnancy, and I took out my piercings about 7 weeks into the first pregnancy. The holes are still there, kind of. But I do leak through where the holes used to be. However, it's not like milk pours out of the piercing or anything. The nipple has lots of milk ducts, so it comes out as much on the sides with the holes from the piercings as the rest of the nipple. There's an older handsome guy in my neighborhood who rides a motorcycle. I do not know him, I know nothing about him. I sometimes find myself saying, "Hi Daddy," when he rides by. That's not even something I say. One day he had a lady on the back and I thought, who's this bitch? I'm not a jealous person at all. I don't know where this impulse came from, absolutely. This happened to me back in college when I developed a crush on a classmate and daydreamed of dating him. I also have friends who randomly call me about encounters with attractive strangers. Yes, to random arousal. Depends on the situation how fast it dies down. Sometimes I get randomly horny at work and then just sit there and fantasize about raunchy things. Takes longer to die down that way. I know this is going to seem weird, but how do you guys control your pee stream? It's easy as a guy, but I'm not too sure it would be for a woman. It gets a stupid question, but I would be happy if I got an answer. Edit. Why the hell did 4.1k people like this? It was a dumb question I had. One of the times I had to pee outside, I did the pre-pee to make sure I was angled right and all seemed fine. I upped the flow speed, the angle changed massively and it was like a broken sprinkler. Thankfully my shoes were waterproof. I think it's the same pelvic floor muscles that men have. When you contract/relax your muscles to regulate your pee, it's at the base, right? As in, you cut the flow off at the faucet, not at the end of the hose. Women just have a faucet, but no hose. You, too, can do Kegels to strengthen those muscles. I know how you feel. I was walking home from the bar one night, totally smashed, and I ended up basically following this gal for like 3 to 4 blocks and it was starting to get weird, because it was like 1 a.m., so drunk me just yells, "Hey, I'm walking home and kinda smashed and we seem like we're going in the same direction, but if you want me to walk in front so you can watch me and feel safer, that's totally cool." She went from peeking over her shoulder to dying laughing. We ended up walking together for a few blocks, turns out she lived like 2 buildings away from me. Do women prefer men to be open and direct about their intentions when dating, or is there necessity for nuance, subtle signals, and such? Like for instance, is it better for men when getting to know a woman they are interested in to say, "Hey, I like you. I'd love to take you out on a date sometime," versus being nice and kind of playing a game where both parties try to figure out if the other person likes them? Probably not the best wording, but I hope it's clear enough to understand the idea of what I'm asking. Edit. Wow. Thanks for the upvotes, kind strangers.